Good evening, friends. Welcome to the current edition of DI Conversations. The subject today is governance in Delhi. We are going to look at a few subjects related to this larger issue of center state and also how Delhi as a city is being run. Is there a deficit in terms of governance? How bad is the scene today? The current scenario, the way things are. You have a chief minister and two of his ministers in jail. They are non-functional. You have junior ministers in the state running the show as far as the AAP or the local government is concerned. You have a fair dose of center intervention in the city. How does this affect the average Delhiite? Is he also concerned or affected by this governance situation, if there is a deficit or there isn't? How much political play is there between the center and state, between political parties concerned? Center has its point of view, so has the AAP government. There is also 8 months down the line, the state assembly elections. So will this push the concerned parties because there's a bigger play coming into action? Everybody wants to be in power. Will a double engine growth solve all the problems of Delhi, or is it bound to remain? Do we need a structural redefining of center-state relations? Supreme Court had ruled out in some cases recently. The center brought out an ordinance to reverse all that. So if there's only going to be point, counterpoint, where does it leave Delhi? In this discussion today, we are extremely privileged to have a very, very strong panel of speakers and opinion makers in the country. On my right is former Governor Manipur, former Home Secretary, Delhi Center, Mr. Vinod Duggal. He's a he's a UT cadre officer who has extensive experience in this field. So welcome, Mr. Duggal, to this discussion. On my left is former Lieutenant Governor of Delhi, also a senior IS officer before that, Vice Chancellor Jamia Milia, and a very popular figure on television channels, on podcasts. So he was also instrumental at a time when the AAP government came into power. So he has first-hand knowledge of a lot of this issue that we are talking about. On my extreme right is former Chief Secretary, Mr. K Tripathi, who has kept his interest going in Delhi's affairs very, very minutely. He is extremely conversant with what is happening. He has a extensive experience, hands-on, in a lot of these issues that we are talking about. On my left here, Justice Manmohan Sarin, who is a very, very senior lawyer, then an eminent judge, and a former Lokayukta in Delhi. So he has also hands-on experience of what Delhi has been. On my far left, Pankaj Vohra, privileged to have him, a senior journalist who's worked very extensively. Again, I'm using the word extensive. It's a common factor between all of you. With the Hindustan Times. Presently, he's attached with the Sunday Guardian. Delighted to have you with us. To begin our discussion, Mr. Tripathi, if I would request you, just present us the situation today as you see in Delhi. The situation as it is, and is there a governance deficit? If so, how much is it affecting the average Delhiite?
Well, thank you, Navin. The whole issue is, there is a saying that a bad workman quarrels with his tools. Now, if you look at the governance of any place, you have a political system, you have a bureaucratic system, and you have a judicial system to see that everything works properly. Now, Delhi, as I know, I have been in part of the cadre, we all used to look forward to a posting in Delhi, not only because of some feature comforts, because in many of the states outside you get more comforts. But the challenges which Delhi government posed, urban governance is very, very interesting. So all of us used to look forward to a posting in Delhi. There was nobody who was not looking forward to a posting in Delhi. Today, if you ask an officer, I have talked to many of them, and they say we would prefer not to come to Delhi. We would prefer to be in Goa, we would prefer to be in Arunachal, we would prefer to be in Mizoram than a posting in Delhi. Now that shows the deficit in governance. The whole dialogue between the political and the administrative system has broken down, and the bureaucrats are not feeling safe and comfortable. And the tensions are very naturally the tensions. And if you have a tense government, then governance will suffer, as it is happening in Delhi. Because every day you have the minister, you have a statement that action should be taken against the chief secretary. The chief secretary naturally then replies to whatever charges are levelled against him. So instead of working for governance and the city's welfare, you have a tussle going on a day-to-day basis. I will tell you of a very strong officer, I will not name him, but he was the chief secretary. And then one day he rang me, you please get me transferred out of this place. So I said, you are a very tough man and you are giving good governance. So why you want to get out? He said, sir, in the morning I read the newspaper. I know what is going to come in my dark. The newspaper tells me that I will be asked to explain 5 things. And when I reach my office, those 5 letters of inquiry against me are there. And the whole day I spend in answering those replies. And since I am good at my work, I give them solid replies.
How much does this affect the average Delhi?
No, so I am telling you, so once the chief secretary is busy answering the inquiries against him, how will he govern? See,
No,
you
that
have the
way-
post of chief secretary.
That way, I also say if 3 ministers are in jail and 1 minister is only doing a hunger strike or a fast, then when are they working? So who's working and who's actually running
So
the city?
that is where I am saying the problem is that the political class has to give direction, shape to the policies that I want this to be done. And it is the bureaucracy which has to deliver. And if they do not deliver, but before deciding the policy, there also has to be a dialogue. Whether it is doable or not doable, what are the challenges? Well, if you tell me that you do this, then I must have the right to ask you, okay, I can do all this, but I need this money, this manpower, because even, Winston Churchill said,
So are you
give us the
saying-
tools and we will do the job.
So you are saying delivery is not happening?
Delivery cannot happen. I am not saying it is not happening. I am saying delivery cannot happen in such circumstances.
Mr. Duggal, would you?
Okay, let me, first of all, thanks for including me in this panel. I presume it's an intellectual or academic discussion without prejudice against no particular person, no particular political
No,
party,
sure.
That kind of a situation. And the aim is how Delhi can get better governance. I have been part of Delhi government when there was no chief minister also. केदारनाथ सानी जी थे और वो मेट्रोपॉलिटन काउंसिल थी और I was secretary to the lieutenant governor. And then, of course, later as municipal commissioner, I had electricity, water, roads, you name it. I mean, morning 5 o'clock to evening 11 o'clock was the working hours. There was BJP government in Delhi, Congress government in center. There was Congress government in Delhi, BJP government in center during Vajpayee's time. The main issue that worries me is that when there is a problem pertaining to the people, how to serve best to the people, the first thing that's happening, and not only in Delhi, wherever the opposition party governments are there, is it gets politicized. And those parties also politicize the thing. Service to the people, how to solve the problem, and how to, in my entire service career, I'm being absolutely honest, whichever government was here or this thing, dissent was never taken as disrespect. You could disagree with the Chief Minister. You could disagree with the Prime Minister. I have sat down in many Cabinet Committee of Security meetings, Cabinet meetings, and you had a view you expressed and things like that. So the scene is now that it's so happening, and it is within the government, with the local okay, this fellow is a center government political person, so let's fix him. And the center government person is okay, let's fix the state government or things like that. So unless there is an elevated way of thinking on all sides, that solving people's problems takes priority over everything else, rather than one can go into detail of whether it is Haryana responsible for water or
No, we'll come to the water.
We'll come to the water thing later. But I would say that the atmosphere generally is that bonhomie between the opposition parties कि ओके भाई लोगों की सर्विस करनी है और कैसे बेस्ट तरीके से कर सकते हैं ये करना है. So that somehow has
Jung sir, what is your idea?
Thank you for inviting me to this discussion. Let me first start with what Tripathi Saab said. There is obviously a crisis, and a crisis that stems and impacts not only Delhi, but impacts the preservation and sanctity of the Constitution. It impacts governance in a much larger way than we can cover in this discussion. The Constitution is absolutely clear vis-a-vis central government and the elected government. The Constitution, Section 239AA, and it has been upheld repeatedly by the Supreme Court, makes the central government responsible for the administration of Delhi and governance of Delhi. Let's have no doubts about it. This question has been raised repeatedly, whether Delhi should have a statehood or not. In 1986, there was the Balakrishnan report, which is on record, and it was upheld in 2021 by Chief Justice V K Mishra in a judgment, clarifying clearly that it is the center that is responsible. There are many reasons for it. So we don't have to go into the reasons why this system of say duopoly exists. Now, public order, land, police will always be the responsibility of the central government. There are reasons for that. There are subjects listed clearly, again, in the state list in the Constitution, which the elected government can manage. Now, all these years, barring little fiction, there has been no dispute on these issues.
Land, police and services.
No, sir. Services is the question mark yet. I'm not coming.
Okay.
Services is the big question mark, which is not defined in the Constitution, unfortunately.
Okay.
And where the Supreme Court itself has kept in abeyance, and they've referred it to the larger bench.
Okay.
Land, public order.
Begging,
both of them, land and police.
begging pardon of the Supreme Court and meaning no dishonor, I think Supreme Court is erring in keeping this in abeyance, because there is a convention on how services are to be managed. So it was almost impossible for this bureaucracy to work. Dekhiye, the bureaucracy, as Duggal Saab would tell you, is a very malleable organization. We learn to live with every party. And I worked in Madhya Pradesh, where bulk of my time was spent with the BJP. But I had chief ministers of the Congress government whom I worked with without any issue. And when I came here, it was the UPA government that appointed me, and subsequently I worked with the BJP, this Honorable Prime Minister, as of now, without any issues. That's how we are trained, because we follow this book. This, if you remember your interview with me many years ago, this is our Bible. We swear to the Constitution of India. We don't swear on the Quran. We don't swear on the Bible. We don't swear on the Gita. In the academy, there is a swearing-in ceremony where we swear to the Constitution of India. So there have been issues of governance, because I think that when this government came in, there was a high level of excitability. They had come out of what they called an Andolan. they thought that they could change the constitution. They thought that they should change the constitution. So, अब सवाल ये है कि with all this, there has been an inability for smooth governance in Delhi, and that continues to exist. The services has never been an issue till this government.
Yeah.
There is a tradition that the Honorable Chief Minister would come to the Lieutenant Governor with a list.
Yes.
Okay, look, these are the guys we want to be transferred. I have worked with the Delhi Chief Minister, Mrs. Dikshit. She would come with a list. We'd have a cup of coffee. We'd discuss कि आप इसको यहाँ चाहती हैं, उसको वहाँ चाहती हैं, कोई reason है इनको तबादला करने का कि नहीं है. If you had a rational discussion like we are talking, 90%, 99% you agreed with the Chief Minister because no Lieutenant Governor is mad to intervene with the Chief Minister's recommendations. Why would we? There's no personal agenda here. There's just no personal agenda.
Jasab, what is your opinion on the... Jung Sahab has talked about constitution repeatedly. He's talking about abiding by the constitution. You are
On that-
upholding the constitution for decades.
Let me start by saying, when we started this discussion, as was anticipated, there is almost unanimity on the basic issues and the approach. Jung Sahab has referred to some of these things, the role of the court and etc. Of course, there are some pertinent or essential details which obviously cannot be covered in such a short time left out. And it is not, what I want to say is this, just as a prelude. I had gone through, in these cases, the 6 judgments that have come from the Supreme Court on these issues of 239A. In each of these judgments, the advice by the Supreme Court has been have political dialogue, deliberation. That is the answer. Conflict is not the answer. This is the malady which is now fomented in Delhi. We need to see that it does not spread. That is my main concern, or what I visualize
Spread
it.
to
other
other
states.
states.
You know, for that what we need, and I am making it a point, and as you said, we are, all of us are apolitical at least.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. You know, there has been a decline in the political discourse. Far from respecting, as Duggal Sahab also said, dissent or appreciating a different perspective. Arey Baba, you may have a view, but you are not the total repository of all wisdom. There can be a different view. There is wisdom in appreciating a dissenting view. Now that seems to have gone across the board for a Siksa. What has happened is, if there is a dissent expressed, that is taken as animosity. You are differing from me, you are against me, there is a political motive for it, there are 100 other reasons. I must fix you. Now that is a culture, that is something which must come to an end. So I would say, you know, we talk of...
with your permission. Absolutely right. I just want to add 4 words. Particularly where matters of public interest are concerned.
Correct, sir.
Particularly, I mean, there can be other issues or things like that where different view you can take. But where the general public is concerned, that should be a priority for both the...
You said that in your address.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
rightly
Also,
emphasize
one more
that.
thing,
We hear this phrase so often. Have zero tolerance. But what we forget, that zero tolerance is for corruption. Zero tolerance is for negating administrative principles, not following them. Have zero tolerance for them. Nobody is stopping you. And as a matter of fact, sir, you will recall as Lokayukta, several cases I had made those mentions about pointing out cases of maladministration.
Correct.
Their government was taken aback. What is the Lokayukta got to do with this? I said, his duty is to take cases of corruption. I said, no, you have not seen the act properly. There is also power to recommend remedy or measures for maladministration. So we had several poor people getting relief. So, that is the function. In a positive sense you can go. Now, on a larger score, you see, what happens is the political goal, political expediency, and I am saying across the board, seems to be the mantra. And at its altar, you sacrifice
Good governance.
good governance and values of integrity of persons, like Excellency was mentioning.
Pankaj, would you like to shed a journalistic macro picture on the governance deficit? Obviously, we have moved a little further because all these issues are interrelated somewhere.
No, there is certainly a trust deficit between the present government at the center and the elected government in Delhi, and it gets manifested in all the kind of clashes which keep on happening on a daily basis between the Lieutenant Governor and the Chief Minister's office. Having said this, I have a different perspective. Most of the problems in Delhi arise out of multiplicity of authority. There's so many authorities and there's no accountability for a lot of people. Now, the question which also arises is that should people who have no accountability have more power than people who have been elected directly? In the case of the present government, for instance, I'm not taking it. These people have been elected with an overwhelming majority which has not been seen by anyone in the past. And I don't think it will ever happen in the future either. And these people are also not from the regular political stream, and they, are all the time on a war path where they wish to, the current Chief Minister proclaims himself to be an anarchist. So, in this kind of a scenario, what perhaps is needed is that you have a person who's a level-headed person as the Lieutenant Governor, who is not vindictive and who's not hitting back or is not creating problems. Here it is a situation where, the Chief Minister goes one step, the Lieutenant Governor goes two steps. So it is not solving the problem, it is complicating the problems. And
goes on a spike.
Yeah. Second thing is that, His Excellency Jung Sahab, mentioned that about the Balakrishnan report. In 1989, there used to be, as Duggal Sahab was earlier saying, till that time the arrangement was there was a Delhi Metropolitan Council and there was a municipal corporation governed by an Act of 1957. And when VP Singh came to power, I'm just giving the historical background. These two bodies were superseded, and Justice Sarkaria was asked to end multiplicity of authority and make recommendations where Delhi could have a more responsive, the civic body should be more responsive, and similarly the assembly or the elected body should be more responsive. Justice Sarkaria was in those days in a lot of commissions. So Mr. Balakrishnan, who was a former bureaucrat, was added, and he ended up giving a recommendation where it not only instead of ending multiplicity of authority, it created more problems and it vested more powers in the hands of bureaucrats rather than the elected representatives. And however, the arrangement worked. We talk of the constitution. Constitution was based on the recommendations of the Sarkaria Balakrishnan report. These amendments were made, and once they are a part of the book, they have to be followed. There are no two ways. And when the Supreme Court, gives advice, it is purely on the basis of what is listed in the constitution. But how it got into the constitution also needs to be properly looked into. This arrangement worked primarily, all these years because of two reasons. When Mr. Madanlal Khurana took over as the Chief Minister in 93, November end, he had been an opposition leader. Every bureaucrat in Delhi knew him and knew how much, problems he was capable of creating. So when he took over as the Chief Minister, whatever he wanted, his will would prevail and the bureaucracy would never create any impediments. And the Lieutenant Governor, there was Mr. Dave, who was appointed by Mr. Narasimha Rao. He, tried to, but there were clashes. But Mr. Khurana's personality was such that, he had an overwhelming, what do you call, impact. Mr. Khurana went, Sahib Singh Verma ji continued, and Sushma ji was there for a very brief period. Then came Sheila ji. Sheila ji basically, was a bureaucrat's wife. And she also had the advantage when she took over shortly after that. It was an NDA government at the center, and you had Mr. Vijay Kapoor as the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi. Mr. Vijay Kapoor had the distinction of holding, he was a blue-blooded Delhiite who, grew up in Delhi, had his education here, and held every position from ADM till the Lieutenant Governor, including Municipal Commissioner, Chief Secretary, DESU Chief, this, that. So he knew the city pretty well. So, he was there. There were sometimes differences between the two, but, they would get solved because there was someone who could, hold the hand and Sheila ji was also very much dependent and, protective of the bureaucracy, something which cost the Congress later, in many years later, because the political, she did not build anyone in her party, but her party went down the drain. But bureaucrats had a very good time, and some very
Bureaucrats had very good time.
and some very good work was done. I'm not. It was it was because of a very good coordination and very good teamwork, and there were no clashes. Mr. Arvind,
One minute.
With your permission.
No.
The point is, okay, I'm not, as I said, I'm not going to discuss personality because side A, I perhaps
Yeah,
know
of course,
B, C, D, E, F, G. What I'm saying is, okay, when Sheila ji was Prime Minister,
Chief
Chief Minister, Vajpayee ji was the Prime Minister,
That was the difference.
and they were they are the different parties and things like that. What was important is that what was in the interest of the people of Delhi, Government of India would let them work and say, okay, you do your work. And I was part of the Delhi administration.
I know.
And I was handling several
yeah.
portfolios.
All of you have said we are avoiding personalities.
Yes.
Does the question boil down to a question of personalities only? Because if you talk about Sheila ji, her personality was different. You also talk about Arvind Kejriwal, where you are saying that he came to power assuming he will be some kind of an anarchist. His claim to fame is to disrupt. His claim to fame is to find a new level for himself, cut loose from everyone else, and project himself as
The savior.
the new person
Avatar.
to be trusted.
The personality angle is absolutely critical. Like I said, we should not doubt the intent of Mr. Kejriwal at all. He came with the intent of changing what he thought was a corrupt system. If you remember, he led almost a revolution in 2012 against what he kept describing corruption. And that he steamrolled into Delhi on that mandate. So therefore, he came with a conviction that he has the ability to change the thinking of the system. What he did not understand is that the system is old, it's by itself quite mature, it needs very careful handling if you want to change it. He forgot that I can't agree with Pankaj because you can't violate this. You disagree with it, it's fine, but you can't violate it. And he kept repeatedly saying that this is wrong. No, that's where the problem came. And of course, then the temperament that he was in a hurry to perform. He wants to perform for the benefit of Delhi. Please understand, he has worked enormously for the poor of Delhi. ये जो पानी का है, बिजली का है,
झुग्गी झोंपड़ी हुआ है.
I mean, the man's intent can't be, and also his ministers. Each one of them have been very sincere in their approach.
No, but
the problem is the tongue.
No, but
the problem is what you say.
if I ask you that your approach to coming to power, to say I am the revolutionary who will change,
The Messiah.
the Messiah, Now that will not work once you have assumed power. You cannot continue to disrupt once you are in power. I could disrupt in my
So, Naveen, that
climb
is
to
where-
power.
that is
But once
where
you arrive
age-
there,
That is where age and experience comes in. That is where somebody who's much more seasoned. I mean, look at VP Singh. He came with the same impressions. But VP Singh had age and experience on his side, and therefore there was no misbehavior. He let his government go in 11 months. But he was not misbehaving. But he came with the same intent. He came to create a revolution. And so the only problem that has happened here in the last 10 years, much to our bad luck, is the attitude. I think the man is first class. I think he had good ministers. The intent was good, and also the MLAs were very uppity. आप बदतमीजी करके सरकार नहीं चला सकते. आप पुलिस वाले से बदतमीजी नहीं कर सकते. आप SDM से बदतमीजी नहीं कर सकते. आप
चीफ
कलेक्टर से
सेक्रेटरी के
बदतमीजी-
साथ नहीं कर सकते.
तो, you know,
किसी के साथ नहीं कर
आप
सकते.
secretary
CS, your own CS, no.
So therefore, that has become the bane of this government, and it has not changed successively despite 10 years. We were hoping in 2019 when he came in that there'll be a change in behavior, but it didn't happen.
What has been happening is, and the setup that Delhi has been given under the Act is for special reasons. Delhi has a unique situation. The Supreme Court has clearly defined it, that Delhi's situation is not comparable with any other state or any other union territory, right? It's sui generis, stands on its own. Unfortunately, if you go through all the judgments where a pattern is emerging which does not augur well, in a sense, the Supreme Court has come down and said, look, the LG has to exercise this power of reference very sparingly. It is not in every case that he has to do. Every matter need not be referred to the LG. He has to be informed only. They have interpreted it. His consent is not to be taken. Now, unfortunately, in these cases, the center had taken a different position. So, the Supreme Court has clarified those and set it aside. And that is, while doing so, just the expressions they have used are, it is time that the parties, both the parties they refer to, who are there, they understand the concept of collaborative federalism and constitutional balance, constitutional governance and objectivity, nurtured and cultivated. This is the answer. What the point I am making is, going to the court is the last solution. It is not always, you have had 6 judgments coming through over a period of time, and ultimately I heard Jamia say, and you also mentioned that, Supreme Court has again referred it to the constitutional bench.
The only services.
Matter. Rightly so. They have laid down the conditions, and in those conditions, sir, with due respect, the center has also to abide by them. There are various things which have been clarified, and you can't say that the center is totally following them. Of course, there are enough provocations not to follow. Coming back to it, the answer lies in showing political maturity at this stage, going in the process of consensus and dialogue to the extent possible. And you don't have to bend, you don't have to give in. But tell the man, this is all that is available to you.
I
Tripathi
think,
sir?
Naveen, what the consensus here is, and I think what my experience also, that having 2 different governments is not a recipe for disaster.
Is
You
not-
can have, is not a recipe for disaster.
It can workable.
They can
It's
workable,
workable.
and
Yeah,
I can
absolutely.
tell you,
And it has worked
it has
over a
worked,
period of
and
time.
not only that, I can now share with you that the Mrs. Dixit, when she was CM, the best time she had was when the BJP was in the center.
Yeah.
With all major reforms like power sector reform, CNG, bold decisions happened during that time.
As importantly, are there any bold areas where you think a decision is pending or wavering? Somewhere today where Delhi needs some things, some issues happening.
Sir, there is
No,
no.
no, I will tell you
There is
that
a standalone candidate. There is a block. You are talking of decisions being pending, waiting.
नहीं, कोई
What
area
Tripathi
है
Sahib
where-
has been saying is administration
the
is a standstill.
biggest area is water.
तो
See, Delhi mein water was a big crisis about, if you remember, 12, 13 years ago also there was a crisis, and tankers were being looted. You know, when you send a tanker to somebody, a tanker was sent to the cabinet secretary's house. Before it reached him, the Mohalla people took away the water because they were so desperate. And then, you know, it was realized that there has to be consensus, not only between the center and the state, but also with the states. Because Delhi has a very peculiar position. You have a great advantage of being a capital. So you get a lot of respect from others. But at the same time, you are highly dependent on everybody. See, if there is pollution in Punjab, you are affected. You cannot remove the pollution in Delhi without cooperation from Punjab and Haryana. You cannot solve the water crisis in Delhi without cooperation of Himachal, UP, Haryana
so
and
somewhere
Delhi.
without casting aspersions on any particular person, is there a situation now where the present state government, in their rule book, they don't have a principle of collaboration? Is that an issue?
Collaboration will happen if you respect others.
मैं एक आपको एग्जांपल दे सकता हूँ. You know, when I was LG, there was also 1 year of president rule, and water is a common issue in the
Yeah,
summers, and we had a crisis. But I called Mr. Khattar, who was chief minister, and I said कि साहब ये हो रहा है, आप कृपया इतना पानी रिलीज कर दीजिए, नहीं तो हमें तकलीफ हो जाएगी. I called Akhilesh Yadav, जो उनकी सरकार थी, वो जमुना से गंगा से पानी आता है. Within 2 days, the water had arrived.
Yeah.
So it is how you deal with these people and what they think of you. तो अगर आप लड़ जाते हैं, मैं खट्टर साहब को थ्रेटन करता था, कुछ नहीं.
Taking it to the next level, I mean the higher level.
Yeah.
When I was Secretary of Water Resources, Government of India, a huge battle between Punjab and Haryana.
Yeah.
Huge battle. So, Chief Secretary cannot. So I made a presentation to PM, Manmohan Singh ji was Prime Minister. तो उन्होंने कहा दोनों CMs को बुलाओ. तो Captain Amrinder Singh came and Mr. Chautala was the CM. PM ने मीटिंग ली. आधा घंटा पौना घंटा मीटिंग चली और दोनों ने कहा ठीक है, because there was a respect. It is in public interest. This is where I am going back. Where public interest is concerned,
That's
large
paramount.
public interest is concerned, your personal political agenda should take a
Affiliations
little
go into the background.
and serve the public interest, and that is what is going to serve you back.
But what has caused the water crisis? This
No,
one, this particular one.
No, so the point is that for water, to solve the water problem, the first is you must have very good relations with your neighbors. And I will tell you, there was a time, because Delhi also it used to happen that, CM will give a statement, CM Haryana will give a statement. So we had a principal secretary irrigation, a very seasoned senior officer to me, and I had known him for a number of years. So he called me, he says, what is this? He says, in future, let us decide. I know you, you know me. We will not allow this matter to become a political issue at all. If there is a problem, we will talk. And please don't go to your CM. And I will not go to my CM. And we will solve it. It is our job as bureaucrats to solve the problem. But if you make it political, then I cannot help.
Overall, Delhi is overpopulated. The infrastructure is not there. It cannot cope with the kind of migration which keeps on taking place. The people who are already living here are also living in misery because they don't get the kind of things which they should be getting. So, many years ago there used to be a policy of rehabilitating or making these NCR townships so that the migration to Delhi does not happen. Now NCR also is fully developed and more people have come and settled out there. As a matter of fact, there's as much population in Gurgaon, Faridabad, Ghaziabad, Indrapuram, etc. as much it is in Delhi. So, things are not getting solved this way because resources are limited and modern technology can, take you only up to a point. And on top of that, there is a confrontation which is taking place all the time because there is a government at the center which, treats its opponents as enemies, not as, stakeholders. And there are state governments which, look at the center also in a similar way. So till the time there is a better coordination, more streamlined relationship, and that is the point where the bureaucracy has to play a major part.
But I think that water is a very serious crisis. It's 50 degrees temperature. Come what may, if we have to beg Haryana, if we have to send tankers there, we must get water for the people of Delhi. Otherwise, I mean, I think Delhi has already had, Pankaj, 100 deaths?
Yeah, around that.
Around deaths.
But as a for a permanent solution, I think what the other measures which are required, at least all these pollution free, treating the other water that is used for horticulture and otherwise.
Sir, that you are absolutely right, because
That needs to be
Delhi,
picked up.
see,
That
there
is
are
not
agreements on water. Sir will know better. And every state has been given certain quota. You must lift that. Delhi already has exhausted its quota in the Jamuna, and Ganga we had no quota, but it has been given because of Tehri Dam came up, and Delhi government paid 5% cost the Tehri Dam to get the water, Tehri water to Delhi. So Delhi was the government. You see, if you are the needy person, like you are the state which requires help, then you have no choice but to go to another person, convince him, request him, persuade him to listen to you, and you should also be willing to invest.
What about
Because-
rainwater harvesting?
So, sir, now, to my opinion, it is only my personal opinion that future for Delhi, because more water can only come when Renuka and Keshau Dam are constructed. When they will be constructed is a matter of time. It has been in the past for so many years. Delhi government has also spent some money given to Haryana, but abhi tak wo clear nahi hua hai. So, till that time comes, the only answer is that you must have a dual piping system in Delhi, where you have, and you must have small STPs instead of large STPs. So the colony wastewater gets treated,
That's
and it should be recycled into your tank, which
Used
will be
for
used for
all,
flushing.
all
It should
the
only be used
toiletries
for
and
flushing.
others.
Well, 82% of the water, 90% of the water is used for flushing. Only 10% of the water is used for drinking and kitchen.
My bigger concern right now, or an extending concern, is that you have elections 8 months down the line.
In Delhi.
In Delhi. So are we going to witness the intensification of all that is ongoing, or will there be some rationale coming and some help coming to the city?
No, there's going to be no politeness, no softness.
ED will remain active. ED will remain active.
I mean, sorry to use the word, लेकिन बदतमीजियां चलेंगी, बढ़ेंगी. So I think we have to reconcile with that. It's up to the people of Delhi now to see who they elect.
And my last question, on a very constructive note, any solutions you want to offer for the setup of Delhi for the future? Who will put it together is one thing, but if there is multiplicity of authorities, as Pankaj mentioned, there is the services area where the Supreme Court has not pronounced its views, there is deficiency in terms of governance in the state. You are saying water is a crisis which is emerging or has emerged as symbiotic of the malaise that is there in the city. It doesn't even behove well for the capital of Delhi or the capital of India to not have water. I mean, it's when we are a progressive country, we are saying we are a world leader, a global emerging power. We certainly need water. I mean, that's the least we can expect. Any solutions you recommend for the structure of Delhi?
See, these are, so many recommendations have been made, and this is really
What is your
not a
recommendation?
decision. No, there has to be sharing of power between the center and the state. And as it was working, a certain working arrangement had been arrived at, where certain level of postings, for example, let us take the service matter. All super time officers, the file was always sent to the LG for approval. Below super time, LG had said you the
Conventions
CM and
were built up.
and chief secretary conventions were built up, and the solution was there.
But are you
So
saying the existing...
now the problem arose that when a new government came, they said no, we will not send files to LG. Now, which LG would take insult beyond a point? See, LGs are willing to help, but if you tell them that no, you are nonsense and you are nobody, and I will not even send the file to you.
Tripathi Sahab, on that what Duggal Sahab said a little while ago, personal egos have to be kept apart.
Yes.
No, but are you?
So, and I'll give you
There's,
example.
no,
but
I'll
are you
give
saying
personal
one
example?
minute, are you saying the structure is all right if it's
No,
respected?
what I am not saying. I am saying this is a bigger question. As
Supreme
we have said
Court,
earlier,
Delhi's
Delhi's
has in the
structure-
judgments clarified that these are the kind of
No.
files which need to be
No,
sent
so what I'm saying-
for his information,
Rajiv?
and these are the ones for concurrence.
Are you saying that the structure is fine if it's respected?
Too large a question.
There is, yeah, that's possibly a too large a question, but in a nutshell, I will say it's very workable what's happening. It has worked since the chief commissionery system ended and the lieutenant governor came in. It really depends on personalities. That if you want to vitiate all conventions, if you want to break conventions, if you don't want to listen to reason, then they will. Abhi we tend to blame the our government. I am saying you can have very unreasonable LG also. You will break conventions. So the point is here, because there are two authorities which are powerful, then I think a level of maturity and sensibilities are required, and there are established conventions. If you follow them, there is no dispute.
The answer is, sir, constitutional governance and balance and objectivity. They have emphasized it
But Pankaj,
again
I
and
think,
again.
will have a view on this because he is much more experienced. in
No, I
dealing
mean,
with it.
I can give a view which most of you may be holding, personally, but may not express it openly. But I personally think that Delhi should have full statehood. Delhi has a population of nearly 3 crore people. There are states which are with smaller population which have the right to self-determination and self-rule. As things stand today, Jack Parvesh Chandra, who was chief executive councillor of Delhi, used to always say that Delhi is everybody's mistress, nobody's wife. There is no sense of belonging. This is my view. But if the present system has to continue, then there has to be more accountability and more accessibility. If the administration has to be run by the bureaucrats, they should be accessible. It is not that a person is waiting and out of the entry to the Sachivalaya is restricted. No one can go to the Delhi Secretariat just like that.
No, but ministers also need to be accessible. Right?
But
If they are
ministers
behind
are,
bars, how will they-
elected representative will always be accessible because he has to get elected the next time. A bureaucrat may not be. Every bureaucrat is not accessible. There are large number of bureaucrats who, are darlings of the people. People, love to go to them because they solve. But there are also bureaucrats who just, have everything ready on the file, but nothing is happening on the ground. So that approach has to change.
Duggal sir, is the system?
Well, my experience, I finished with government, about 9 years back. When we join the service, you are a public servant. And I was in government for 50 years and never deviated from that principle. I mean, you check it out. And I think this is my PK knows.
Absolutely.
And this is what my guidance to this thing is. You see what you are talking about, the next elections and the politics. Mr. Khrushchev, Nikita Khrushchev said that politicians are same all over the world. They will promise you bridges where there are no rivers also. So you don't, so you don't have to go. I am only saying that where public interest is concerned, politics should take a backseat. The problem in Delhi has been currently,
More magnified.
more magnified because of the difference in this thing, and it's all.
But just one question.
Now,
which
what you mentioned about these, okay, if we do projects, say, STP karo, ye karo, wo karo, various things. Now you will have to go to Government of India for the additional funds.
Sir, more than funds, it is the land.
And the land,
Because
even
STPs
if
have
you
to be set up on land.
even if you have to set up the land, again it will be, you will have to go to DDA.
So basically,
Now you will have to go to DDA, and DDA is under Government of India.
Must end. Confrontational politics must end.
Yeah, that is
Yes.
number one.
Number two, you mentioned
In public
that's up,
interest.
that your fear is this malaise does not spread. Is it already not spreading?
Which one?
The malaise of Delhi, where there is confrontation between the state and the center, he said a little while ago.
That is a very larger debate because it's the attitude
Yeah.
of
And let's
the
keep it
current
for another
central
day.
government vis-a-vis very powerful satraps. They have their own interests. The central government has obviously made its interests very well known. It's also made its intentions well known. I mean, the breaking of parties, etc.
You know, that Naveen would really be a
So
subject
therefore-
matter of another.
That would be
advance.
another.
Yeah, yeah.
So basically, we are all saying that confrontational politics
Must
is
end.
probably
Must end in public
must
interest.
end in public interest.
right.
And
No,
Delhi,
I would say that public interest
Demands.
must take priority over the
should have overriding-
political
Sir, let's
interest.
put it this way.
You serve both parties
And-
should serve
and-
the public
and-
this thing,
and somewhere-
let the public judge ke who's giving
And
the
Public
somewhere-
interest requires
and-
that confrontation is brought to an
and
end.
somewhere you also said, Judge Sahab, that people are watching.
They do.
People are watching,
Absolutely.
and people will vote for who's delivering. We have reached that point
पता चल जाएगा साथ में.
that people are watching and they will vote for who's delivering.
Yes.
Earthy sense of wisdom.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen.
that
Thank you very
optimistic
much
note.
for being here. Thank you.